Good morning or evening or where are you? Welcome to AP Microeconomics. We're doing this is our second session of FRQs, tips and tricks, as we're gonna work through some of the big ones tonight. Just let everybody come on in. Come on in. All right, also it helps me measure the lag, which is always lovely. Oh, good. All right, I can measure the lag now. So yes, I've got a little poll up there, as you've discovered. I finally figured out how those work pretty well, and I just remembered. So happy that I just remembered this. Let's go ahead and turn on closed captioning before I forget. There we go. Hey, great. So excited to see you all. Thanks for coming out. All right, as we wait for everybody else to come on in, let's go ahead and talk about just find out how you guys are feeling and see how you're doing today. Let's go ahead. I don't want to publish the results. Go away. Okay, let's go ahead and do this poll real quick. Oh, nope, didn't want to do that one. Go away. Let's do this one. How are we feeling? How are you guys feeling in terms of microeconomics? Let's see how we're doing. We've now done we've done our 6 major unit reviews. We've already done a session on the basics of the FRQ. So let's go ahead and just, how are we feeling? And that way, my little latecomers can come on in. I've got a lot of super nervous. I hope you all have your nice warm beverage of choice, especially tonight. Let's see. Okay, we got 4 of you. For those of you just coming in, we just got a little poll of how confident you are right now, or how you feel right now as we go into the AP season. For paper-based, you've got 2 more weeks. And for digital, you've got about a month. And then for digital, I may have a separate session just about changes to the digital. They've got some really cool things for digital. I'm having to learn it myself on naming parts of the graph and how they're going to be creative and trying to quiz you on or trying to figure out what you know about your graphs without having you graph. So kind of neat how AP College Boards AP and College Board have had a year to kind of figure this out. And so now they've got some clever people. Right. Got a lot of super nervous people. All right. This is good. That's good. I like that you guys are feeling okay. You're super nervous though. None of you are like woohoo going brave hard over here. For those of you just coming in, I'm seeing some people switch on in. Some of you are on phones, so that's okay. Let's see. All right, good. I got some super nervous people. Great. Well, hopefully we'll be less super nervous after tonight. Excited about that. Okay, so let's go ahead and it's 3 minutes in. Excited. Let's go ahead. There we go. Let's archive that. So welcome back. I'm so glad you guys have chosen to spend an hour with me as we prep you for your AP Microeconomics exam. That's coming up on May 12th for those of you taking the paper-based, and then for session 3 for the digital. So we want to make sure that you've got the best possible chance you can to get that 5, and we're going to do what we can here. So just as again, welcome to Fiveable. We've got our social media. Feel free to join on. I and my awesome TA Sharia, Micro Queen Sharia, she is going to be hanging out in Discord. She's also in chat. So if you ever want to just say hi, she's amazing. My future colleague. So she's like, no, I'm going to solve the world's problems. Please do not make me a high school econ teacher. It's okay. It's okay, Sharia. Life comes at us quick and fast. So that's all right. She'll be a great one. So on May 1st, our last session is going to be May 1st, and that's going to be at 4 p.m. That's a Saturday. So it's going to be kind of fun. We're going to be doing a couple of FRQs. I'm going to do 2 of them, and I'm going to let you kind of do these on your own. a little bit and then kind of guide you through it. Tonight's going to be more of a step-by-step because we are going to be wrestling with a number one. And then, my dear friends, we've got the first micro finale, which is going to be happening on May 11th at 5 p.m. all the way to 10 p.m. So the 5-hour gang is alive and well. Some of you, I should make that a poll next time, but if you've been a member of the 5-hour gang for another AP, I'd love to get your response. All right. So we've got so paper-based, again, Discord with Micro Queen Sharia. It happens, well, whenever. I'll bebop on over there occasionally, but Sharia really has the fort held down quite well. So I'm, again, continually impressed with her. So we have the paper-based or the peanut butter micro test, whichever one you like. The paper-based micro test is going to be on May 12th this year. I know this is on week 2, so some of you are already starting to feel AP fatigue. That's okay. That's normal. Just remember it's temporary and you're almost done. So one big last push. And that's really what we're in. We're in that last push. If you're a senior, it's going to feel like walking through just absolute jello. Everything's slow. Seniors, push through to the very end. Finish strong. Leave a great impression on your school. Just show yourself to be a fighter in that one and really push through it. It'll be better in life. It'll help you for life to go through something that you really want to do. But everyone starts well, but not everybody finishes well. So there's your life lesson for tonight. Okay, so tonight, I was going to do this one more thing. I'm sorry. Let me go back. So for the finale, I asked this last week, but I'm going to ask it again. First, I'm going to do this. What is that? No, I don't want to publish the results. There we go. Let's go ahead and open the poll on this one. I want to ask again, what would you find better? For example, for the finale, just looking at for the finale, what would be most helpful for you or what's most beneficial? So are you looking for more like a let's play situation where I would be doing, Sharia or myself would be doing MCQs or multiple choice questions, like how thinking aloud, that external thought process as we go through this? Would that be beneficial to you? Just some people like me talking for 5 hours, God help you. But if you just want somebody to be lecturing content for you, and it's like as soon as they get done with Unit 6, they go back to Unit 1, if that's going to help you most, let me know. In that one, random Q&As for drop-ins, and again, we're going to be doing a little bit of a mix of this. The question is, what do you guys want? And then the last one, I'm not sure. So you're just, usually the I'm so lost people are going to be the I'm not sure people. And that's okay too, because anything is going to be good. So again, things out of those 3 things, lecturing content or just presentation of content, unstructured Q&As, or more of a let's play, or just a walkthrough situation for multiple choice questions and FRQs. So just kind of let me know what is going to be helpful to you. I can, by myself, I'm old. So you got to give me a guess or help me out in figuring what's going to be best for you. Okay. And now let me get rid of that. Okay. That helps me out a little bit. And again, if you've got any other questions, for those of you on replay or just watching this again, hi, how are you? Hope you're having a great time, whatever part of the day it is as well. But for those of you on replay, if you feel like you've missed your chance, you haven't, go ahead and jump onto Discord and just tell us what you'd like. We're still kind of finalizing that process. I don't meet with Fiveable team, or we don't really meet yet because we're still trying to ask you guys what you really want and what's going to help. So please, please, please jump in there. Okay. I've talked enough about that. So we're going to talk about what's coming up tonight. We are going to walk through an FRQ number 1. And we're going to do that using one of my fun ones. This is the 2012 FRQ number 1. And then we're going to do a little Q&A. Again, Q&A is going to be both in chat, but I almost prefer it now on the Q&A feature if you haven't used that yet. So the Q&A feature, I'll be bebopping back and forth with that. But the Q&A feature allows me to show your question on the screen. So again, I discovered that last week and I was very excited. You're like, wait a minute, I'm old. Give me a break. All right, so let's talk about what is an FRQ number 1. All right, an FRQ number 1, there's a flow to AP. and there's a flow to AP Economics. It's that warm, comforting hug of routine. For a paper-based or the peanut butter AP Micro, sorry, that's my friend Maria who will be doing the macro test. But for micro, it's always going to be 60 questions done in 70 minutes, and it's always going to be 3 FRQs for the paper-based, at least for right now. So you know what you're getting into. So you've got 60 multiple choice questions, 70 minutes to do it, and then you get a little break, and then that's standard time, by the way. If you have accommodations, go ahead and add your time and a half or 2 time or double time, and you're good to go. The FRQ always follows a pattern. 1, 2, 3. We talked about this the last time too. Number 1 is going to require multiple, or the number 1 paper-based at least, the FRQ for the digital will be a little different, and we'll have a little change up for that as well. FRQ number 1 is substantially longer, and it's more complex than questions 2 or 3. Questions 2 and 3 are considered the quote-unquote short FRQs. You're like, really? Those are kind of long? I know. It's okay. We're going to get through it. So FRQ number 1 is substantially longer and more complex. What I mean by more complex is that it layers itself. It will have you will need multiple units and have mastered multiple units in order to get full credit. So it's going to require you to know your Unit 2, Unit 3, and Unit 4. They love Unit 6, especially now since we didn't have a test on it last year. So they really love Unit 6 because Unit 6 is with externalities and public goods is going to force you to utilize everything, and you'll see hints of Unit 6 tonight. Again, this is not a history or English paper. We are humanities, yes, and economics, but history and English don't claim us. We're kind of like in between science and the humanities. So we're still there. It's just we like our answers clear and concise and with a lot more math. So, and you're going to see how we're going to do this tonight. We want to aim to finish because, again, they just give you the chunk of time. They're going to give you that hour. You technically have 10 minutes just to read and chill and get your head going and think. And then you got about 50 minutes to write all 3. Aim to finish up FRQ number 1 in about 25 minutes. And again, if you have accommodated time or accommodations or extra time, go ahead and do your time and a half calculations. So we want to aim to finish in about 25 minutes, and you need to watch the clock. No one is going to tell you to switch to the next question. It's a block of time. You have to pace yourself. Okay, so if you've read ahead on the board, I need you to go get some paper because we're going to practice. All right, so give you a second to find some writing utensil. Take a drink of your tea. And we are off. Okay, everybody's got paper. Excellent. Now we're going to pretend, I'm going to go super slow on this, but we're going to pretend that we are in a testing situation. Okay, which means in a paper-based, we can't use a calculator. We have to use a pen. That's another one. If you have a pencil, get used to writing with blue or black pen. But what if I make a mistake? Life's full of mistakes. We're going to roll with it anyway. So, and in fact, you're going to see what I do when I make a mistake. We're going to scratch out pretty clearly. We're going to make sure we label things, and we're going to make sure our reader knows it. All right, everybody should have paper because we're going to practice. Okay, so FRQ number 2. Now, some of you may be on a phone, so I'm going to read you this. So first step when you're dealing with a number 1 is don't get overwhelmed. And I know you're like, well, wait, when you say don't get overwhelmed, I'm just going to get overwhelmed. Breathe, take a deep breath. Settle. You have time, okay? If you panic and you rush through this, you are not going to do well. You have lots of time. Let's see. I've got a question here. Whoops. Oh, no. Oh, sorry. Somebody just asked me a question and I pressed the wrong button. I am so sorry. And as I was reading it, that question, somebody asked me, and I just missed it, but I think I caught it. Somebody was asking me about the digital exams, if they are in order. And I believe, if not, please just rewrite the question. I am so sorry. But the digital exams, from what I understand, they are in order. So, and again, I'm going to get more information on the digital later. I've got to get my school as paper-based, so I am busy getting you and my students ready for the paper-based exam. So when digital, we're coming for you. Don't worry. We'll have all the details with digital, but FRQs are here to stay. So this will help you. Just know that you're going to have a little different take on this because you're not going to have to graph. Although there are graphs involved. All right, so since some of you are going to be on phones, I'm going to read this to you. And so there we go. All right, I'm going to read this to you. But number one, first off, we're going to take a deep breath. And number two, we're going to read the entire FRQ, all right, with a free response question. So we've got Steve Rail, the only provider of train service operating between two cities, is currently incurring economic losses. Using a correctly labeled graph, show each of the following. Steve Rail's loss minimizing price and quantity, labeled PM and QM respectively. The area of economic losses, shaded completely. The allocatively efficient quantity, labeled QE, B. If Steve Rail raised the price from PM, identified in part A, I, that's that Steve Rail's loss minimizing price and quantity, would total revenue increase, decrease, or not change? Explain. C, assume a per unit subsidy is provided to Steve Rail. Will Steve Rail's quantity increase, decrease, or not change? Explain. II, will consumer surplus increase, decrease, or not change? D, assume instead that a lump sum subsidy is provided to Steve Rail. For the short run, answer the following. I, will the deadweight loss increase, decrease, or stay the same, or not change? Explain. II, or 2, will Steve Rail's economic losses increase, decrease, or not change? Okay, so those of you on replay, there you go. For other people, you can zoom in. All right. I realize it's a little small for my people on phones, so that's okay. All right, first thing we want to do, that's a lot. And some people, their eyes are going to cross and they're just going to be like, I don't care. It's so much. TL, DR. No, you are going to read this. So one of the ways that I've trained my students and I'm training you to kind of help you breathe and help you read is I want you to underline the words calculate, explain, and how. Now notice there's not a calculate in here, but that's okay because trust me, there will be calculate at least on one of the exams. But I want you to kind of find those words. And on the sides of it, you'll see A, B, C, and D labeled respectively. I want you to try to identify the unit. Is it coming from unit 1, unit 2, unit 3, unit 4, unit 5, or unit 6? The other thing is there anything weird? Like, is there anything odd or kind of doesn't really space out well or doesn't fit well? I'm going to show you what I did. I'll give you a second here. Go ahead and if you're playing along at home, go ahead if you want to screenshot this, if you got Cami or something, if you want to just underline, calculate, explain, or how, talk about which unit these are all coming from. Because remember, why am I stressing the unit parts? Because when you get under stress, you're going to forget. You're just going to say, I don't know anything. My teacher is terrible and I have forgotten everything. You have not, but you need a retrieval cue. And so what I do with my classes, I make sure that they know which unit things are coming from. They really know those learning objectives. So, and that's what I'm doing with you. It's going to help if you can recognize some things. So what are some things we can recognize here? Well, we know that, well, first off, you can see the red lines. I've underlined the explains. The explains are tricky because I know there's more points. There's point. It's not just one point. There's more points there. So I know that I've got to watch those. The other thing I noticed, there were some odd, this is the blue line here, some odd things. So Steve Rail, the only provider of train service, only provider, which unit? If there's only one provider, oh, that's in perfect competition. I'm in a monopoly. Notice how it doesn't say monopoly anywhere? You've got to figure that out. And it tells you that by saying it's the only provider of the train service. And the other odd thing is it's incurring economic losses. And my thought is, well, wait a minute. why is a monopoly, monopolies are, they're going for profit here. Why is it at an economic loss? And it's like, oh, that's unit 6. We may be talking about a public good here. Aha. So we've got a little bit of unit 6. We definitely have unit 2. We did, because we've got, you see that little allocatively efficient word in there? We definitely have unit 2. We have some of unit 3 hanging out in there, but definitely we're camping out in unit 4 with a little bit of unit 6 mixed in. And again, thinking about units helps you to, it's a retrieval cue for your memory to go like, oh, okay, I know what a monopoly is. I know what that is. And the more you bring back, the more you settle down, and the more you're going to be able to do this well. Okay, so hopefully you've got your paper, because here we go. So we're looking at letter A. So letter A, again, is using a correctly labeled graph. Oh no, we've got a graph. So again, digital-based children, you are not, I don't believe you're going to have to do this, but you are going to need to recognize graphs. So the digital exam will have graphs on there, but how you answer it will be different, and we're going to be coming back with you to help you out with that. All right, so using a correctly labeled graph, show each of the following. All right, well, what are we going to do? Well, as I tell my kids, you need to set the table before you dig in. So we need to set our table, and that begins with beginning your graph. Do not make the X of supply and demand or whatever. Don't start with the curves. Start with the axes. Always start with the axes. So we want to remember the unit after we do that, but we're first going to start with the axes. So to start with the axes, go ahead and on your paper, go ahead and put, I call it the gator graph. Make your gator. Go ahead and throw your X and Y axes on there. Notice how I've labeled it. So I've already put A in parentheses. And don't make these graphs small. Big graphs make small mistakes. So make these big. You need to have a graph that's at least 5 lines long if you're using notebook paper. So that graph needs to be big. To paraphrase Sir Mix-a-Lot, I'm sure if he were an econ teacher, he would say he likes big graphs, and he cannot lie. So what we want to do is first start with the axes, and now we're going to label them. Don't lose points on poorly labeled. So we start with the gator graph. We label that where we're at. So A, axes. Now label the axes. Set the table. You're not going to put your pudding down first without placing the dish. So we're gonna label it P and Q, price and quantity. And you also know this is a monopoly. So I know that my demand curve and my MR curve are split. So I've got my monopoly graph, and I'm going to quickly just do that. But do I have the place where my eyes go first? And the answer is no. I'm missing something. I've got my MR, but I need my MC. All right, any questions yet? All right. So now that we've got our graph, so we've got our basics there, we're going to go into looking at since we've got the monopoly, we're going to add the MR equals MC by adding the marginal cost curve on the graph. All right, then once we have the marginal cost curve on the graph, that's going to give us our MR equals MC. And then what I would like you to do is just kind of try to remind yourself, what is the corresponding price and quantity, and really do quantity first based on that MR equals MC. So I'll go ahead and I'll give you about 20 seconds to figure that out. For those of you remote, you can just kind of chill. I'm sorry, those of you on replay, you can tell I teach hybrid right now. Those of you on replay, you can hit pause for a second, and then we'll get back. Okay, so this is what we're going to be doing here. So first step, we've got our MR in our D split, and from there, I'm going to get quantity first. So quantity, I look for MR equals MC. I'm going to drop an anchor down to quantity first. Get your quantity first. I can't stress that enough. Quantity first. So get the profit maximizing, or in this case, loss minimizing, quantity first. And then we're going to plant our flag because the monopolist is never going to undercharge. Monopoly is going for profit. And then I'm going to plant my flag all the way up to the demand curve. And that demand curve is going to establish, where that price is. Let's see, any cues? No questions yet. All right. Guys hopefully that makes a little sense to you. You've all done monopolies. Easy peasy, you got it. All right. So from there, guess what? We nailed it. We've already nailed I, or the first I. We've already nailed number 1. So A1, we got it. That's like the sauce. It's done. So A1, Steve Rail's loss minimizing price and quantity labeled PM and QM respectively. Okay, this is one thing that you got to really just pay attention to. If they tell you to label it as PM and QM, do not label it as P1 and Q1. Now, your teacher has their kind of way of doing this, and that's fine. As long as it's consistent, everybody's good. But when the AP test asks you if they ask you to label it a certain way, label it their way. They could say, please label this X, Y, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, whatever. And you need to label it like that. Sometimes they're just making sure you're paying attention. All right, so now we're on to number 2, or II. The area of economic loss is completely shaded, or is shaded completely. All right, so we need to understand the loss situation, I need to add an average total cost curve. But remember, you're going to be tempted to add that total cost curve just kind of where you normally do. But remember, this is a weird one. Steve Rail is the only provider of train service operating between 2 cities. It's currently incurring economic losses, which means where is the price? It means that the price is operating below the average total cost. So I need to mosey on over. I've got to get that ATC above the price range. But here's where it's tricky. The minimum of the ATC curve is where the marginal cost intersects the ATC. I'll say it one more time. The minimum, meaning the lowest point of the ATC curve, is where it intersects the marginal cost curve. Now, you do not need to show that completely on a graph, so don't get all artisty on me and be like, oh no, it's not completely the trough. Just get it nearby. It's okay. Just get it nearby and you're okay. Because what it's asking for is, okay, what's the loss? So I want you to think about that. Where is the loss? And the loss is going to be the distance between the average total cost curve or the gap between the average total cost and, because remember that's per unit, and the price that's being charged per unit. All right, so it's that little gap, but don't just label it. It needs to be shaded completely. So it's going to, there we go. So we want to make sure that we confirm the table has been set correctly. For number 2, we're going to follow instructions. And number 3, don't forget that allocative efficiency is P equals MC. So let's go ahead and take a peek at number I, or number 1. First off, you'll see that little top part. I'm just checking questions real quick. You'll see on the graph to the left, that's where I'm starting, that I made this little box. So I first made a little dotted line from the price to the ATC curve. Notice it's not hitting the minimum. It's nowhere near MC, and that's fine. And then I'm going to put a little line to the side, and I'm going to call this is the price of the total cost, right? The question does not say I have to label that price at all. So I'm going to label it whatever I jolly well feel like. So I think I did PATC on here. So I think I labeled it PATC. Doesn't matter because it's not asking me. And then I'm going to shade it completely. You don't get weird. Not every inch of paper needs to be scratched in completely, but it needs to be shaded, not inked, or whatever. So it just needs to be shaded in. So that's where the losses are going to be. And again, this is unit 4. So if you need some review on unit 4, again, you can throw, you can throw that into Q&A if you would like, or you can just ask in chat. But this is unit 4, so that's going to be our losses. So we are in a loss minimizing situation. You're like, oh, is it going to ask for a shutdown? Well, it might. And this would be, let's see how it goes. So we've got confirmed the table has been set correctly, meaning that if you didn't set your ATC where it needed to be, you might as well just stick a fork in you. You're done. All right, so we've got, we got number 2 done. Number 3, so the allocatively, you need to label the allocatively efficient quantity, or allocatively efficient quantity labeled QE. Careful here, guys. I need you to read. Does it ask for the price? And the answer is no, it's not asking for price. So if it doesn't ask for price, don't give it to them. No, we only give them what they ask for. Now, here's something that I would recommend you do. And I would recommend that since the readers aren't spending that much time on this, help your readers out. Just label where things are on your graph. So if you've got your PM and QM, just throw a little I on there. Just label it. Be like, hey, reader, this is what I'm talking about. Give me points. Now, for the allocatively efficient quantity, allocative efficiency is where P is going to equal the MC. Well, P in this situation equals demand. Remember, price equals demand from unit 4, but the demand is going to be split from the MR. So it's not a Mr. DARP, it's just DARP, all right? So demand equals your price on this one. So where does P equal MC? It's going to be at that, it's going to be where the D and the M and the marginal cost intersect. That's going to be your quantity, or your QE. That's your allocatively efficient quantity. And you see I've labeled it QE, and I've thrown a tiny little 3 below it. I'm not giving my reader any room so that they can work with. It's like, no, here's my graph. Here's what I mean. Also, I don't have to write a whole bunch of extra words. This does it. This is just check mark, check mark, check mark. That's all I want, because check marks equal points, and we love that. Okay, now let's look at B. B is where letter A, or number 1, start to show up. So if Steve Rail raised the price above PM, identified in part A1, would total revenue increase, decrease, or not change? Explain. Oh boy. I'm going to go back to here so you can see the graph, and you should be looking at the graph that you've been writing. So if Steve Rail is going to raise the price, so Steve Rail, it wants to raise the price. It's trying to beat them. It's trying desperately to beat the price, or it's trying to beat the losses. So they're just like, oh, you know what? I'm just going to raise the price above the demand curve. I'm just going to raise that price. So if it raises the price above PM, identified in A1, would total revenue increase, decrease, or stay the same? Explain. Now this one's tricky, because remember, what does it mean when you are at the MR? Remember, think, what does marginal revenue mean? Marginal revenue means that we are maximizing profit, or when we hit MR equals MC, we are maximizing profit. It also means that if we are above MR, like if we're more than MR, it means my curve, or the curve that the part of the monopolist curve that I'm working with is not unity elastic. It's just elastic. Now I want you to think, what does elastic mean? Take a moment. What would elasticity have, or what kind of effect would elasticity have on this curve? And you're like, whoa, elasticity? I haven't heard that since unit 2. Well, guess what? It's back. So what would that mean? If I raise the price, if it's an elastic good, all of a sudden, what's going to happen? So is the total revenue, take a guess, total revenue going to, by the way, total revenue, price times quantity. So is the total revenue going to increase, decrease, or stay, or not change? Oh, it's definitely changing. But what's going to happen to it? You need to make a definitive statement and then explain. Do not combine your answer inside that question. Don't let the reader guess. You tell them. You may be wrong. Oh, okay. Oh, great question. Let's see. Here we go. Oops, nope, come back. All right. Why is allocatively efficient shown there again? I'm kind of forgetting the meeting. Oh, great. Okay. Let's talk real quick. I'll go back to QE. All right, good question. So what we mean by allocatively efficient, there's two types of efficiency. You've got productive efficiency and allocative efficiency. Let me go to productive efficiency too, just so we can kind of separate the themes here. Productive efficiency means that I am operating at the least cost. It means I'm working as hard as I need to. So if you're being productively efficient while studying, it means that you've got your Facebook turned off, you've got Snapchat turned off, you've got TikTok, you got your phone away. You're just you're using your time to only work on your econ. Okay, so I am being productively efficient. I am functioning where the price I'm paying is at the lowest average total cost. Allocative efficiency, remember what allocate means. It means distribute. It means if I'm studying, allocative efficiency means this is the best mix, as AP likes to call it, the best mix of products or the best mix of things in the economy. So if I'm studying, it means I'm studying enough time on econ, and then I move from econ to English, and I'm studying on the right things. So productive efficiency with econ would be I'm using all my time wisely. I'm studying for just 1 hour, but my goodness, that hour is going to be no Facebook, no social media, no talking with friends. I'm just studying. So I'm being productively efficient. Allocative efficiency means I'm studying the right things. So I'm focusing on my notes. I'm watching Mr. Clifford videos or Mr. Walker videos. I'm studying the right things. And both of those combine to decide about efficiency. So in this situation, I'm going to hide this so you can actually see the graph. So in this situation, where the demand curve, or the price, we call, if you think DARP, average revenue equals the demand equals price. In perfect competition, that's where the Mr. DARP comes from, because MR is going to equal D, which equals P. So in this situation, the price is going to, where demand hits the where the MC, that's your best mix of goods. So this is going to be the allocatively efficient quantity, is at that point. Okay. And now back to this one. Sorry about that. Good question though, because that efficiency is going to haunt you. Make sure you've got those guys. Make sure you have like the definitions, but as well as the formulas, because you're going to find those formulas come in all the time. All right, so we're going to make a definitive statement, and I know that above MR, or above the MR point, is going to be elastic. So what I do is this. I'm going to label B, so the computer can pick it up. So I'm going to label it, and it's a decrease. All right, my total revenue decreases here. And why? As soon as I pick up the price, I've got a major problem, because it's an elastic good. All right, our demand curve, when I raise that price, is above MR, meaning that the MR, or the marginal revenue, is greater than 0, and it's price elastic. Now, notice what I'm doing here. There's a few things I'm doing that's a little different, just because I want to make sure that the reader knows that I know what I'm talking about. I'm saying it's price elastic, which means I'm going to go, it's PED, here's my price elasticity of demand. It's the percentage change in quantity over the percentage change in price, which means that the price increase will disproportionately affect the quantity. So in this situation, if the monopolist raises the price any more, then if you've got Steve Rail here, Steve Rail is the only provider of train service, well, it may be cheaper to get an Uber at that point. They're going to find substitutes for the entire service. So they might find a car. They may not find a train, because there isn't a train available. They're going to find something, or they just may walk. It may just be too expensive. It gets more, the higher the price something is, the more of a percentage of the income for someone, the more elastic it becomes. People will find alternatives. Once you're below the MR, it becomes more inelastic, meaning that, of course, you wouldn't find another, it's way too cheap. So why would I am dependent upon this. Pick up any questions there? Nope, we're all good. All right. Okay, so that's what we want to just notice. It's not long. This is not a long answer at all. All I'm going to say is a definitive answer. So, because it asks, would total revenue increase, decrease, or not change? And I just say straight up decrease. Now, if you want to strengthen it, you can say total revenue decreases. That works too. So decrease, demand is in range above the MR greater than 0. Some people are you might get full credit just by saying MR greater than 0 and price elastic. Yeah, it could work. But here I just wanted to add that price is going to disproportionately affect Q, meaning that you're going to have subsidies. And sure, you can add more. Please do not write a book. You don't have time. So just enough. We want to be efficient as well. We're going to be clear and concise, just enough so that our own MR equals MC, or MB equals our MC, if you want to go weird on that one. All right, now on to C. Try this out. So with C, be very, very careful. This per unit subsidy is going to change. A per unit subsidy changes ATC, AVC, and MC. This one, you're not required to graph. All right, it doesn't ask you to graph. In fact, if you look at the question, it says, assume a per unit subsidy is provided to Steve Rail. Now, some questions are going to say, hey, you will need to graph, please show P2 or PM2 or QM2. It's not saying that. You're not required to graph. But I'm just telling you right now, graph for you. It's not going to get you a point for the reader, but when you graph, it helps calm you down and it helps you see. Because remember, sometimes econ is a little counterintuitive, and we're gonna work with it. All right, so don't worry about that. So we've got, in this situation, we're going to assume a per unit subsidy. Oh my goodness. I hope you know the difference between per unit and lump sum, because this question would absolutely wreck you if you didn't. So a per unit subsidy. Per unit means that every single unit produced has a subsidy attached. You might actually see this again only as per unit taxes. They love those, versus a lump sum tax. A lump sum tax is going to just change one data point. Changing one data point does not affect the graph. Well, it affects cost, but it doesn't affect the marginal cost. However, your per unit subsidy means that the AVC, the average variable cost, is affected, and remember, if the AVC changes, where does AVC hit the marginal cost? At the minimum. So if AVC moves, and remember, variable cost is like your labor. It's paying for resources, it's paying for your workers, it's making sure all of them are paid. Oh, I see a hand. Hi, Merck. Are we waving or do you have a question? Somebody's got a hand in chat. Looks great. Just a reminder, if you've got questions, go ahead and throw them into the Q&A, or you can throw them in chat, either one. If you throw them in Q&A, I can show them on the screen. Oh, well, Merck, waving right back at you. Thanks for being here tonight. Or merch, either one. We're all about the merch. All right, so if that per unit subsidy, it's going to be provided to Steve Rail. So I'm going to graph it here. So I'm going to head, and you can kind of see what I do with mistakes, because I fooled myself. Happens. Fooled myself. Just graphing pretty quick. And do I need to label everything? No, I'm just making my own little doodles here. So I'm going ahead because I already know that I've got my answer quality up top, and I don't want the reader to mess with that as I'm just trying to work through my thinking. So I'm just going to do a quick and dirty graph that I just remind myself. Okay, so I'm thinking, what does this look like? So first question is, will Steve's quantity increase, decrease, or not change? And it's asking me to explain. So what I'm going to do for this one, don't forget, per unit subsidy changes, ATC, AVC, and MC. So here's what's going to happen. This first one, now notice the handwriting is different too, because I'm going quickly and I'm making mistakes. And do I need to be nice with this? No, I just need this. This is me thinking. This is me just making sure I've got everything. I've got it under control, and I'm just trying to think this out. So it's not the best MC2, as you can see. Also, I was trying to think, okay, ATC is at its minimum, so I got to make sure I hit it here. Okay, so, and there should be a second ATC, but we'll go there. All right, so I know that the AVC has changed. All right, so, but what's going to happen? Well, just by moving that MC to the right, I now know what's going to happen, because when I move marginal cost to the right, it hits the marginal revenue in a different spot. All right, and I still have to, I'll plant my flag first, and then I drop my anchor first to find the quantity, and then I'm going to plant my flag to find the price. All right, and let's see. So there we go. So I plant my flag, I get up to that demand curve, I've got my new price, and now I can say, oh, look, my M1 and my M2 has increased. So it's moved to the right. That's what that little arrow is for. Remember, that dirty graph over there next to C, that's not for the reader. That's for me. That's for me to think. Remember, doodle, doodle, doodle. You need to graph, graph, graph. If econ is for the doodlers. So I'm going to just throw in, remember, if it's asking me, will Steve Rail's quantity increase, decrease, or not change? Explain. I need to make a definitive statement first. So I'm just going to throw in Q up. That's another way you can say it. Or you can say, if you want to be real fancy, you can say quantity increase or just increase. That works too. And I'm going to explain it that the subsidy is going to shift the marginal cost to the right, which will intersect with the MR line at a larger quantity. Does it have to be that formal? No, it doesn't. You're just going to go through it. You're just explaining what's happening. You're just kind of walking through it. Now, what about number 2? Notice what number 2 does not have. Will consumer surplus, C2, by the way, will consumer surplus increase, decrease, or not change? Does that say explain? No. So guess what? I don't need to explain it, and I'm not going to. So I am just because I might explain it and explain my way out of a point. So I don't want to do it. So I'm just going to give AP just what they asked for and not worry about it. So they're asking, will consumer surplus increase, decrease, or not change? Well, think about it. What's going on? So what happens now remember what consumer surplus is. It has to deal with where the price line is. And think about it. Where's that triangle going to be? That triangle is going to be a little bit north of where the price is. So I look at my new price and I'm like, oh my goodness, that price. So you can see where I put the C1. The CS1 is consumer surplus 1. And then I look in that little gap between the consumer surplus, the price, the PM1 and the PM2. That's the increase to consumer surplus. That means that the price has actually dropped even more because of this per unit subsidy. And it's because which means the consumer surplus will increase. The area of the triangle has gotten larger. Yay, everybody wins. Okay, so let's look at D. Everybody feeling okay? We're all good. Excellent last bit. But usually D's are doozies. D for doozy. Now we want to be very, very careful because I want you to think, what is this question trying to do to throw a curveball at me? Sorry, having a little sip of tea there. All right, so number 1, it says, assume instead that a lump sum subsidy is provided to Steve Rail. So remember, C had us doing a per unit subsidy. D has us doing a lump sum subsidy. All right, so a lump sum subsidy is provided to Steve Rail. For the short run, answer the following. Okay, so it's trying to get you, it's already covering its bases in some places because it's just saying in the short run. Because in the long run, different story. Monopoly is a little odd, so it's like, here you go, help you out. We're only talking short run. So number 1 from D, will the deadweight loss increase, decrease, or not change? Explain. So now we know we have to do a definitive statement because it's asking, it's given us 3 options. Will the deadweight loss increase, decrease, or not change? So I want you to take about 30 seconds. Let's do 30 seconds, not too much time. For my people watching replay, you can pause right now. I want you to see if you can do this. After what we did with C1, this should mirror it to an extent. So we're going to take 20 seconds. Give me a second to check for questions. All right. Hopefully you've all given this a shot. All right. So will the deadweight loss decrease, increase, decrease, or change, or stay the same? So let's take a look at it. Well, first off, what do we know about the difference between a per unit subsidy and a lump sum subsidy? I don't know about you, but when I think lump, back in my day, we used to have a song called Lump by the President of the United States of America. We had a song called Lump, but lump, you just think of when it says like lump sum, I want you to think like a big old bag of trash. It's just, or a bag of rubbish. This thing, it's at one shot. All right. It's at one point in time. They're just throwing money. So here comes Steve Rail. Here comes the government. A per unit subsidy is when the government comes in or a corporation comes in and goes, hey, Steve Rail, for every ticket you sell, we are going to give you a $1 subsidy. So that $5 ticket, you can now charge $4 because the government's going to be paid, well, depending on the elasticity, but let's say it's unielastic. So if it's unielastic, you can just say, well, we'll cover $1 of that ticket price. Not lovely. But a lump sum is when the government's like, hey, we need more writers here, so we're just going to give you $5,000 at one shot, or we're going to give you $5,000 just at once, so that you can lower these prices. So lump sum, though, how many data points does that actually change? If it's lump sum, it's only going to change one data point. The line doesn't change. So lump sum subsidies or taxes, because you'll see questions that have to deal with both of these. Lump sum subsidy or tax, it's not going to change your AVC. Your AVC, your average variable cost, that's what's connected to your marginal cost. So if the AVC doesn't change, your marginal cost stays where it is, which means MR and MC stays where it is. That MC line does not shift. Okay, good. It does not shift. So we need to stay clear and concise, giving the explanation, because we know that a lump sum subsidy only changes the average fixed cost, and which is only going to be, it's only going to affect the average total cost. Because remember, AFC plus ATC plus AVC is going to equal ATC. So, and then for number 2, we are not going to give the reader any more than what is asked. All right, so let's go ahead and look at number 1. So will the deadweight loss increase, decrease, or stay this or not change? Well, it's a lump sum subsidy. So how would I even graph a lump sum subsidy? Well, I don't, because it hasn't shifted. So it's not going to change. It's not going to change like we see in C. And it doesn't change because lump sum will not change the marginal cost. And so I've written down, thus MR equals MC, or profit maximizing quantity, has not changed. Now I have overwritten that there. I could just say MR equals MC, has not changed or is in the same spot. That's fine. and I'll read it again for those people on phones and may have issues with my writing anyway. Just be clear for your reader. By the way, with handwriting, mine is readable, barely, but it works. Don't do bubble writing. Don't make it too small. At least let the reader have a shot. So if you tend to write super, super duper small, change that up, please. At least make it big enough for readers not have to grab their reading glasses to read it. So I know some of you are on phones, so or mobiles, so I'll read it to you. But just when you're taking the paper-based, notice I'm writing this on a full sheet of paper. All right, it is. We are going to be making these graphs big and the writing as big as possible. All right, so this again it does not change. It doesn't change. Lump sum is not going to change the marginal cost. It's because that MR equals MC hasn't changed. The MC has not changed in situation D because of lump sum. It's going to change in letter C because we have a per unit subsidy that comes in. All right. So hopefully we're okay. Not seeing any questions. Okay. So let's go ahead and get to that last bit. So D2. Will Steve Rail's economic losses increase, decrease, or not change? Now you are going to be tempted because you already said the deadweight loss, which deadweight loss, it means we're talking economic losses here, okay? So we're talking deadweight loss, we're talking about loss of opportunities too. So sometimes students are like, well, wait a minute, you're not just losing money. And it's like, no, you're not just losing money, you're losing the opportunity to do something else. So it's deadweight loss is an entire thing. We want to minimize deadweight loss. So with Steve Rail's economic losses, will they increase, decrease, or stay or not change? You are going to be tempted to say not change because it's a lump sum subsidy, but what has it not changed anything? Will that $5,000 just dumped into the government funds not change anything? Okay, wait. Oh, I missed it. I'm sorry. Shreya, thank you for the pickup. The discussion below the stream window. Oh, I'm so sorry, Shreya. I did not see it. Okay, so Shreya caught a question that I did not see. Tried to find it, and I missed it, or it didn't pop up in here. And she said, I think someone asked this in the discussion below the stream window, but for some reason I can't answer there, so I'll answer here. Loss minimizing is the same thing as profit maximizing. Yes, thank you, Shreya. I'll clarify that again. MR equals MC. We know that rule as profit maximizing. Remember, when we approach economics, we are rational actors. This is unlike psychology where they debate this back and forth. In econ, we know it, but humans are rational animals that are going towards their own self-interest and profit maximization. So if you are profit maximizing, it means, okay, I did not know that, Shreya. Thank you so much for that, and thank you for picking that up, and because that allows me to add that to the stream. So in MR equals MC, that profit maximization concept, when I get a win, I want the best win possible. I want the biggest bang for my buck. So I want you to think, if your basketball team is blowing out the other team, all right, you're ahead by 50 points. Well, what does the coach do in that situation? Does the coach keep their starters in and risk hurting the starters or twisted ankles no, this is when the coach is trying to maximize on that win, and he's going to put in some of the JV players. Everybody gets time, like everyone gets to play because he wants to give some people experience. He's going to maximize on that win. The same way, what happens if that coach's same team is losing by 50 points? This is when we go into loss minimizing. We are going to loss minimize, but the actions are the same. We are loss minimizing. We're taking the L, we're taking the loss, but we're doing the best we can with it. So if we're taking the loss, it means like if I'm getting blown out, well, I'm not going to risk my starters anymore. I know I'm going to lose the game, so I'm going to make this the best loss I can do. So I'm going to put in my JV players. I'm going to give them some time. We used to always call it garbage time, but frankly, it's development time. You're not losing, you're learning. So That's what loss minimization is, exactly the same as profit maximization. It's just having to do with losing. So if I'm losing money, I want to make sure that I'm only losing the very minimum amount. And if I need to shut down, I'm going to shut down. But I'm only losing the minimum amount. Same concept goes into profit maximizing. If I'm going to make money, well, darn it, I'm going to make the most I possibly can. All right, so let's finish off with that last bit. Remember, do not give the reader anything beyond. Well, what does a lump sum do? A lump sum is going to take down your cost. It decreases it. And the reason why is it's going to take down the AFC. Lump sum subsidy fits into the fixed cost. So your average fixed cost is going to decrease, which means your ATC is going to decrease. So that ATC line actually travels, it decreases, it comes down, which means it's going to decrease my losses. Do I need to explain that? No. And don't explain it. Don't give the reader anything more than what's asked. So if you notice, I'm only going to be writing sentences where it says explain. Otherwise, I might talk myself out of those points. And so we want to be aware of that. Okay, so if you want to, on the stream itself, I'm going to include, this is the mark scheme. This is what the AP readers are given, and this is what we use to give you the points. And you can see that when I'm sitting down to read the micro exams, that I'm going to be given this, and I am making check marks. It's going to take me about 2 minutes to get through this, 2 to 5 minutes, and I am looking for those spots. Again, do they have to be perfect? No, but remember, your readers are human. Give them at least enough that when they're looking through this mark scheme, they can just check, and and you'll be fine. All right, so let's go ahead, and if you have questions, I know we're about 1 minute over, but that's okay. So if you've got any questions, go ahead and throw them on Q&A real quick. Should we this is good. Okay, got a good question here from Anonymous. Should we always associate total revenue with elasticity? I would. A real easy way of thinking about this is the total revenue test. So some of you, hopefully all of you, have remembered the total revenue test. If you are by yourself, or actually if you're with a group, that'd be even better. All right, I want you to take your thumbs and do a thumbs up. Everybody's doing a thumbs up. Nobody's looking at you. We're all good. All right, do a thumbs up. And then your one thumb is going to be the total revenue, or your one thumb is going to be the price. The other thumb is going to be the total revenue. If the price goes up, so go ahead and raise your hand. If the price goes up, yes, you can be silly. It's okay. Nobody's looking. So if the price goes up and the total revenue goes up, price goes up and total revenue goes up, you got yourself an elasticity. It's inelastic. So if you raise both of your arms, it makes an I, so you can kind of remember it. So it's inelastic. If the price goes up, but the demand goes down, but the total revenue goes down, that is an inelastic good. That is an elastic good. Okay, one more time. So basically, if the total revenue goes up and the price went up, you kind of make yourself into an I. It's a positive relationship. That's going to be an inelastic good. That I, inelastic good. If it's going different directions, if it's an inverse relationship, like this situation is, the price has gone up. If it's an elastic good, if that price goes up, your total revenue is coming down. So, and in that situation, if you are above the MR line, and think of it logically, it makes sense. But if you think of it logically, if it's that expensive, there you go. Thank you, Sharia, for writing that down. Sharia just said inelastic demand, price, and total revenue go in the same direction. So I always use, you can't see me, and that's probably for the best. But if you've got your thumbs in front of you and you put your thumbs in the same direction, you're going to make your body into an I. And so just think inelastic, and that helps with that. But if you are above the MR line, then yes, you are going to be in the elastic range, which means if that price goes any higher, people are going to find alternatives. It's too expensive. Okay, hide that one, archive. All right, let's take a peek. Anything else? All right, I'm looking for questions. So if you've got questions, great time. We've got Sharia who's answering questions and fielding in the chat. So thank you, and thank you for picking up the ones on Fiveable, Sharia. Really appreciate that. And I'm sorry, my captions can't spell your name correctly. Just seeing that too. All right, so we got Q&A, chat, nothing there. All right. So once again, hang out. We're so glad you're hanging out with us with Fiveable. I hope this was useful for you, at least to walk you through a number one. They're not scary. They just require some attention to detail, and they require you to just relax for a second. You're going to make it. It's okay. And so we're going to walk through it. So if you got any questions, Sharia's going to has a fun little session for you coming up next. Got any questions for us? Jump onto Discord. We're happy to help you. We're so excited for you guys, and we hope that you just hang in there. We got 2.5 weeks of hard work ahead of us. If you're paper-based, a little bit longer for those of you who aren't, but we're so proud of you. Stick with it. We're going to make it, and let us know how we can help. So stay tuned. Help us in Discord. Help you make that finale what you need it to be to help you, and we'll see you then. So thanks again, and have a great night.